Okay, I'm not anti-APD. We have to have a police force, but darn it, we have to have a police force that we can trust, that their badge isn't a license to kill, because they know they've been getting away from it for the past 30, 40 years, and they continue to get away with it, So any more questions? All right, folks, you have a good evening.
And I also want to thank SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. They're not specifically sponsoring with us tonight, but they are here. They are everywhere. And they will because of age, follow us, but it won't be long before they're leading us. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Before Lynn Gottlieb comes up, I want to connect a few dots. Lynn we haven't talked with Lynn in detail about how much ground she's going to cover. So I'll cover a little bit of history, and Lynn may cover it in more depth. Most people tend to think that the United States has been a major supporter of Israel throughout its history. The fact is, the United States gave Israel almost nothing in 48, in 67, or in 56 in the Sinai War, and in 67. Israel's weapons in those wars came primarily from Britain and France, and in fact, Israel got more from the Soviet Union than it got from the United States. But what happened in 67 was the United States saw that Israel, already at that time, the absolute foremost dominant military power in the Middle East, was ready, willing, and able to use its military might in an unnecessary war to beat up its neighbors for no good reason. Those were the kind of people that the U.S. military wanted to associate with. Ever since then, the United States has been pouring billions of dollars every year into Israel for military aid. In fact, mostly it's been aid to Israel and aid to the U.S. defense industry, because the money never left the United States. It goes into a bank in the U.S. and then goes to purchase weapons made in the U.S. And then when Israel starts a war, or extends a war, or prolongs a war, or makes a war much more brutal than it was ever necessary to do, what was going on is Israel was testing American weapons under conditions that the U.S. couldn't, because the U.S. couldn't get involved in shooting wars. So Israel was the testing ground for the American military. The United States isn't so much concerned about, well, it is concerned, the U.S. is concerned about shooting wars now, but we have our own. We've had Iraq, we've had Afghanistan. We don't so much need Israel to test large-scale military hardware. What we need Israel for now is to control civilian populations here and around the world. The Tea Party objected to a line item in the defense budget earlier this year, where the Defense Department, the U.S. military, wanted money to study tactics, techniques, weapons for use in controlling unrest due to global warming. And the Tea Party objected because they don't want to admit there's global warming. But the important part is the American military does believe in global warming and does believe that there will be unrest around the world as a result of global warming. And where will the unrest come from? From the 99% in every country in the world, the ones who can't afford to mitigate the effects of global warming on their crops, on their weather, on the way they live. And that unrest will happen, and the U.S. military wants to be prepared to counter it. And the place that develops the methods and tests the weapons for dealing with unhappy civilian populations is Israel, and the testing ground is Palestine. That's the value of Israel to the United States now. That's where the United States is using Israel now. There's still a testing ground. And Lynn Gottlieb, living in Oakland, has done a lot of research about the training that the Oakland police underwent with Israeli advisors 1 week before the Oakland police attacked the Occupy demonstrators. Do you think there might be a connection? And with that, let me introduce Albuquerque's own Lynn Gottlieb. Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb.
Salaam alaikum. Shalom aleichem. Bienvenidos. Peace be with you. So it's very hard to be here right now. Just really, really, really hard. I have stood before this community since 1981 talking about this, and as most of you know, getting a shitload of criticism and being exiled, and my community and so forth and so on since 1981. And, you know, that's the life of a solidarity activist on this issue. And I won't dwell on that. But it's just so painful to be standing here with having to wake up every single day and go on Facebook to find out if Amr Shurab's family is alive. If Ayman Qadar's family is alive. If Amr Hassan's family is alive. If Amal Sabawi's family is alive. And before I go, I want to acknowledge that there may be people here, and thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Gomez, because I just feel your heart. We have a saying in our tradition and also in the Quran: if you destroy one life, you destroy an entire world. If you save one life, you save an entire world. And those of us who have accompanied people or themselves lost loved ones to unnecessary violence, you lose your entire world. And this is happening to thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands of people here in the United States, for the long culture of racism that is here, that began with the genocide of Native people here, that put them on reservations here, that used the US military to destroy communities here, and then brought over millions of African Americans to enslave them here. And this slavery has really never stopped. It's changed shape, it's changed form. You know, we have progressed some in some areas, but we look at the issue of mass incarceration, and we look at the school to prison pipeline, and we look at the culture that you were speaking about, and this culture is still so embedded that it makes the United States a partner in crime with Israel and so many other countries. But tonight I'm speaking about Israel because this is the fourth massacre, major massacre, in the last 6 years to happen to the people of Gaza. if there are people here from Palestine, and those of you who may have relatives there, I would like us to stand for a moment and just acknowledge that there are people here sitting with us who are suffering because their relatives are there and we are so far away. And if we feel, I know a lot of people feel so despairing right now because we're watching this and it just is ripping our hearts apart. So please stand for all those who have relatives, who have, all of you, you know, we're brothers and sisters, are we not? We are brothers and sisters. Let us stand and take a moment for all the worlds that have been destroyed for no reason except greed and hatred and our complicity at not being able to stop it. We may be seated. I was really glad to hear about the petition because I don't want to be giving you information with a feeling that we're not going to do anything about it. You know, I'm really tired of that. And I just really want to encourage all of you to do something, to support the organizations that are here. And by the way, I consider Students for Justice in Palestine a leader, and we're following. We are following Students for Justice in Palestine. We are following young people in JVP. We are following young people who are organizing like crazy, especially on campuses. And campus is where it's going to happen. We really have to support the actions on campus around divestment, around BDS, because I just want to say that is where it's at right now. We have to support, we have to do more than cry. I am so tired of crying. You know, I will continue to cry. I wake up every morning and cry for a lot of things, but we have to engage. We have to be active. We have to become part of the social movement. We can no longer just be sad about it. I cannot tell you how disgusted I am at my rabbinic colleagues who are saying we feel so bad about the civilians, but we had no choice but to destroy Gaza. Please, please, stop crying. Really, stop crying and let us work to change the culture. Let us work to change the culture, because we can do that. But we have to be engaged. So, you know, I've been on the move since I left Albuquerque. And I want to talk about the Israelification of American police. I'll just spend a few minutes on that. I want to start with a sentence that I heard from Palestinians this time on Facebook, and actually the first time I heard it, this sentence was from refugees in Sabra and Shatila, and maybe some of you remember when I went there. Simply, we are human beings. We want freedom. We want the end of occupation. We want the rule of law. We think we deserve to be protected. We deserve to be treated as human beings. Really, is that too much to ask? That is the cry of every human being. So you know that I think by the time Gazans are finished counting the bodies, it will rise above 2,000, and given the population of Gaza, 1.8 million people, squeezed into a little area that's only 25 miles long and 7 miles wide, the most densely populated place on the planet, that the statistical comparison of the number of deaths alone is something like 200 times 9/11. And 85% are civilians. I really don't know what that means. Sure, there are fighters there. There are people fighting for their lives. There are tunnels. There are 40 tunnels used specifically for military purposes. But these people are fighting for their lives. 85% of the people killed are civilians. That is a war crime. And I remember when the Goldstone report came out, 4 years ago, and I was very active in doing citizen hearings on the impact of U.S. weapons on civilians in Gaza, and here we are again. Here we are again. UN schools have been hit, hospitals have been hit, the power plants have been hit, there's nowhere to go, you can't find shelter. Soldiers are literally shooting people, cursing them in Arabic and shooting at them when they try to get away. Kids that are 10 years old, you saw the 4 kids that were killed on the beach. We're hearing reports from Israeli soldiers who are reporting back to break the silence that as revenge for their comrades who have been killed, over 63, they are literally shooting children. The main responsibility, however, rests on the governments of the United States and Israel and France and Britain. So the Israelification of American police goes like this. Police forces in the United States have adopted Israeli methods of dispossessing, controlling, killing, and what they do to Palestinians, dispossess them, control them, kill them, occupy them. This has been adopted by the police in the United States. The best example of this, that's probably the wrong word to use, especially after 9/11, is in the city of New York, when there was literally a demographic unit. And the idea that people, human beings, are a demographic threat to each other, that is so racist. It's just unbelievably racist. And with all of that, billions of dollars poured into the demographic unit of the NYPD, they did not manifest one case, not one case of so-called terrorism. And because they're not able to manifest, what it amounts to is stop and frisk for the entire Muslim population of the United States. And by the way, this has been going on for a long time, because here when I was in Albuquerque, the FBI, immediately after 9/11, contacted the mosque here. And in fact, every single masjid has been threatened by the FBI, and they've tried to get people to, tattle on people in their communities, which is a terrible thing for a community, an awful thing for a community. How do you trust people when you know there's somebody watching you in your own community? They learned this from the Israeli police. And former Israeli military officers spearhead security operations at American airports, suburban shopping malls, and are spearheading the wave of racial profiling, intimidation, and FBI interrogation methods. Now, this is not just, the Israelification of police is done with full cooperation with the American Jewish community, who, by the way, has been completely silent during this massacre. Almost completely silent. It's disgusting. So the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which I believe has a chapter here in Albuquerque still, this national organization has sponsored over 700 police and many trips to Israel to train them in Israel. So organizations that are sponsoring the American police in tons of departments in all the major cities and small towns to go and learn methods from the Israelis are partnered with APAC and the ADL and another organization called JINSA. I can't remember what it means. JINSA. 45,000 law enforcement and officers are required training for new FBI agents to go and learn these techniques developed by Israel. Ray Kelly, in 2009, he supported the first assault on Gaza. He went to Israel. He set up the demographic unit to spy on Muslims after he came back from Israel. The counter-terror methods that were used against Occupy were all developed in Israel. The criminal, illegal occupation is, this culture is being brought to American police. And you know, Israel and AIPAC boast about this. They boast about it. So after 9/11, this is sort of a new wave after the heavy weapons testing. After 9/11, Americans reached out to Israelis on many fronts. And one of those fronts, also I want to say this, is torture. And I don't know if you remember how much trouble I got when I broke the story on torture in Albuquerque in 1998. I broke it. It